Okay, so I'm back after a brief hiatus, another brief hiatus because we had a busy week. The usual pre-wedding shoots, a wedding, and let's see what else. Well, basically, I'm happy that things seem to be resuming, and we're finding a way to conduct events and weddings and things of that nature in a what will I say, socially responsible way. Face mask, social distancing, and what have you. Although I must confess, when it gets to the dance section, all conventions go out the window, face shields seem to disappear, and so do face masks. But, hey, who am I to judge? Anyway, the economy seems to be moving a little bit, and so some of us are getting back right into the groove of things, getting back into action for those of us who are wedding and event industry professionals. So now I'm going to get back to where we left off. That was the case study, part of the sales clinic series that I did with the tech hub in Abuja, Seed Builders. And the fellow that we're looking at was, his name is Godwin, and his outfit is called G Power Case Study Alternative Energy Solutions, and they are based in Lagos. So they handle inverters, solar, and that sort of thing. And then, for those of you who've been listening, the whole focus of his case study was finding customers who can afford you. So that's where we are. And the first step to the process is, first of all, in finding clients at all. And that's what traditionally we do in sales anyway, at the prospecting or the canvassing stage. So prospecting is when you put your shoes on, you go out and you hunt for folks, and then canvassing is when you spray and pray, when you broadcast messages over the airwaves or over the internet, and then see who raises a hand, and then who is worth talking to and who is not. So the first step is G Power Tech needs to be sure that they're finding people to talk to before we get to the question of finding customers who can afford you. We need to find folks. You also need to make sure that you're speaking to the right kind of people. That's people who want what you need and people who can afford your services. Now, that's how it ties in for those of us in the wedding space as well, because the philosophy is basically the same. You need to look for folks to speak to, and you need to be sure that you are speaking to the right folks. And when I say the right folks, I mean people who love what you do, people who want what you need, and people who can afford your services. For instance, before I extended the range of services that I provided, so back in the old days, maybe about 5 years ago, I would only deal with folks who do not like overtly retouched photos and things like that, because I like to keep it natural. So you have to be sure, if you're that kind of photographer, or let's say you're that kind of wedding planner who likes to keep things, understated, simple, and elegant, you need to be sure that you're speaking to the right kind of people who love that kind of work, people who want it, who need it, and of course can afford the price tag that you attach to the services at the end of the day. So that's the first part to the conversation. Now, prospecting and canvassing, how do we get about doing this? We can do this using the traditional methods that we all know in our business circles. And of course, I know that there are a lot of you out there listening to this podcast who happen to have different professional backgrounds. So my academic background used to be in law. I was 2 years as a lawyer. There's some of you that have worked in other fields, and so you've been exposed to all kinds of different ways of looking for customers and drumming up business. So in the law, we couldn't advertise. Well, I don't know if the rules have changed, the rules in professional ethics, if they've changed, and if lawyers can now advertise. I doubt that would be the case, because I haven't seen any adverts running on TV, LinkedIn, or Instagram. That's if lawyers are on Instagram. Anyway, so in your old life, before you became a wedding photographer, there were before you became a wedding industry professional, there were different things that you were exposed to. So, in your old line of business, you may have done online advertising when it was brand new. So, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google. You may have been exposed to offline advertising, church bulletins, flyers, let's see what else, billboards, those sorts of things. Trade shows. Yes, so trade shows, professional associations, those are the sorts of things that we would have done back in the day in the legal sphere. That's for those of us who went to law school, became lawyers and stuff like that. So these were significant ways for us to build businesses to look for new clients by attending professional shows, trade shows, networking, those sorts of things. And then, of course, asking for referrals from previous customers. So those are ways that you can prospect and you can canvas and look for people to talk to. And those are some of the things that I suggested to the G Power case study opportunities that they can use, and also to try and bring an awareness to the fact that it's not a matter of which is the best, it's a matter of both and. You're supposed to be using, you're supposed to be looking for an optimum approach that takes different things into account. So in the beginning, you have to be doing a certain combination. You don't have to do everything, but you have to do a certain combination. You can't say I'm only going to do online advertising as a way to promote my my power company or my wedding practice as a wedding planner. You can't say I'm only going to do online advertising, or I'm only going to do offline billboards and church bulletins, or that I'm only going to do trade shows, bridal fairs or whatever, or I'm only going to ask for referrals. What you need to do is you need to do as many as you comfortably can. So let's say you're one of those folks who you're not comfortable with talking to people and you want to go the advertising route, then do online advertising as well as offline advertising. For those of you who are not yet bought into advertising or the whole online thing, and you prefer looking at people straight in the eye and shaking someone's hand when you can, then of course trade shows are open to you, and then asking for referrals from previous customers. But the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that it has to be a healthy mix. Don't just pick one and say that you're not going to do anything else. So, like Brian Tracy likes to say, there's a fair bit of creativity that has to be involved in this process, and you're only going to be limited by your creativity when it comes to coming up with new ways for looking for customers or applying what it is that we already have and what we already know. So that's the first stage. So before you find customers who can afford you, you need to be sure that you know how to find customers at all in the first place, but of course making sure that we're speaking to the right kind of people. And I'll call it a day here, and when we resume at the next recording, we're now going to go into how you want to be sure that you're speaking to the right kind of people who can afford what it is you do, and which was the crux of the question that the G Power fellow Godwin wanted us to explore. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer Tavishima George Ayede. Thank you very much for your time. I don't take this for granted, and I love you guys for listening. So I'll catch you guys on the next episode. As usual, the usual channels are open for those of you who have questions, comments, and inquiries. Hit me up on email, WhatsApp, the usual. I say this after every episode, so I'm sure you loyal listeners already have that. You already have that recorded somewhere. Oh, and for those of you who listen on the Anchor app, if you open up the app, you'll see a little conversation bubble icon. If you click on that, you'll be able to send me a voice message, and if I think the question is how do I put it? If I think lots of people will be interested in your question and the answer, then I can include that as part of the podcast, and we can get some of those riffs going. The good news is someone already responded, a former wedding photographer who is now in the commercial photography space, and so those the audio has been lined up and is queued up for future publication, and we're going to have that in future episodes once we're done with this sales clinic. And I can't remember what else we have lined up immediately for discussion. Well, anyway, that'll be on the next episode. Let me stop rambling. So thank you very much for listening, guys. I love you, and I'll catch you at the next episode.